Edwin Mercy was an amateur archaeologist from Missouri who spent his time researching and excavating burial mounds in the southeastern United States. Modern archaeologists and even his contemporaries agree that Edwin did more damage than discovery. He pushed hard that the structures weren't built by Native Americans, but rather another group of people. The Lost Tribe of Israel being a favorite choice who since died at the hands of the natives. Despite dedicating his life to their ancestors' creations, he felt little for the Amerindians. To sum up, Edwin Mercy was a racist long on ambition and short on intelligence that, born a few decades later, could have been president. In 1922, he relocated to Texas and began investigating the claim that Hausman Hill in Nobility was not a natural formation but a burial mound. Far west of the Mississippian cultures, and of a size that rivaled Monk's Mound in Illinois, few bought the claim that this was anything other than a natural structure. If it was man-made, modern studies show, then the structure predate the oldest mounds in the country by millennia, dating to just after the Younger Dryas event, making it over 12,000 years old. In the early spring of 1938, he joined the husband and wife team of Joseph and Carrie King, who preferred a more modern and meticulous approach to archaeology. With funds from the Work Progress Administration, WPA, they arrived on the evening of March 14th. By May, the site was found to be abandoned, with barely any excavation work done on the supposed mound. It is now privately owned and off-limits to the public. Despite being adjacent to the Hausman Preserve, neither Mercy or the Kings were ever found. Only their tools, a shredded tent, and a water-damaged journal hidden inside of a sleeping bag were recovered. They have finally listened. I only wish it were to me. No, the great Joseph and Carrie King, fresh off another stint in the Midwest, scraping an inch at a time at some small mound. No bones, no treasure, just pages, just volumes of notes on dirt and seeds and refuse. They are the darlings at the moment. Even my fellows at the Austin City College clapped them on the back and offered cheers. The woman in pants pretending to be an archaeologist and her dim-witted spouse, should I be more grateful? I would have dropped to my knees to beg for the funds to excavate Mound 42, or as the locals call it, Hausman Hill. As I know I will discover, this hill is a burial mound, one on an unprecedented scale, far from the other mound builder structures, and I believe, far more recent. The last stand of these great people, before the savages finished them off with whoops and arrows. The Kings say these same savages somehow built these mounds, all of them. I think not. Indeed, I think Mound 42 will show the true identity of these great people, the multitude lost to history. We meet at the Hilton in Dallas, though our accommodations after this will be limited to canvas tents. There was a man with a film camera documenting the city for next year's World's Fair. Maybe I'll see myself in the crowd should I attend. They say we need to take animals. They say the terrain would jostle a truck to pieces. However, I find the damned animal they sat me on seems intent on jostling me to pieces. It will be a wonder if I'll be able to steady my hand long enough to move dirt or take notes. I heard them behind me, laughing, no doubt at my expense. Or maybe they enjoy this. Maybe they imagine themselves in the Cameroons or some other grand adventure. We will need to bivouac tonight, arriving tomorrow afternoon. I hope the sun is still up when we have camp complete. I want to look at my notes. Joseph King admitted he was sure Mound 42 was a natural structure. His wife simply said they wanted to end the debate. She then inquired about the other 41 burial mounds. Since none have been able to decipher why Douglas Reams gave the structure its obscure moniker. Even with his notes, I don't have a satisfactory answer. but I know this will make Monk's Mound and Silbury Hill mere footnotes. We arrived. As always, the hill is a wonder, rising up from flat terrain covered in small trees and grass. There are no paths, no signs, as no one comes here. Superstitions, of course. We start digging tomorrow. The kings inquired about Reem's notes. They want to see them. I avoid the subject. Tomorrow we start the excavation. They are adamant I follow their lead. I assure them that even though my university is small, I have the excavation experience to dig the damn thing myself. When we passed through Marble Springs, hardly more than a post office and a series of small farms, we picked up a few locals to guide us to the site. They promptly left, with the hills still on the horizon, vowing not to return until May to check on our progress. Superstitions, of course. I don't know what hinders my sleep more, the rocky ground or the oppressive heat. We wake with the dawn. The donkey paws at the ground and snorts, the only sounds besides our tools in the dirt. Carrie asked again about the notes. They want to know where to start, where Reems found the bones and pottery, the ones under glass at the Austin City College documents room. Maybe the heat made me short. She did not appreciate my response and said, rather bitterly, that the notes in my bag were the only reason I was invited to come along. Otherwise, my ideas and career would be left in the dustbin. They belong there, apparently. We move to opposite sides. I take the shaded portion, for the morning at least. I dig shovel and spade. They nip and pick with coal shovels and dental tools. Immediately, I see evidence. They merely nod when I share what I find. 10 inches in, a layer of rock. 3 inches beyond that, another layer of stone. Walls of rock, placed there by the hand of this lost race. They haven't hit the first layer of rock, but have damn near filled their first notebook. We found remains. The kings have said little to me. Of course, these aren't the remains I've hoped for. They will be deeper in. In Ohio and Minnesota, skeletons over 7 feet tall, some with massive skulls and multiple rows of teeth, have been found within burial mounds. They were buried with all the pomp of great kings, as I assume they were. These are the builders, the architects. What we found today were smaller. They said average, I say diminutive. Typical savage bones, thrown haphazardly into the layers of dirt. Carrie claimed there are signs the bones were wrapped in thorns. Joseph claims they were arranged specifically, giving a message to whoever disturbs their remains. I think this is just another attempt to try and mislead people into thinking Indians made these structures. They have been quiet since the find. The animals have not. The horses and donkey bray and whine and stomp on the ground, making an ungodly racket. Sleeping in this veritable desert is hard enough without them. At least the kings will be quiet, instead of sipping from their flask and singing that horrid tune. A smile will go a long, long way, as they did the past evening. The find, of course, vindicates Reems. If we could locate him, he would be pleased. I am on the heels of greatness. Of course, they don't see it. No. Today the woman lashed out at me for moving the bones I uncovered from my path. They said my work is sloppy and destroying the discovery. They compared me to those miners the Pocola Mining Company hired to dig that site in Oklahoma. I respond that my digging has made the discovery. They want me to go a damned inch at a time until my dig looks like an earthen ziggurat. But we know this is not a natural structure. The alternating layers of clay and dirt, the brick wall of carefully placed stones, and the bodies make this clear. We will find the giants inside, the giants who built the Great Snake in Ohio and the Great Cherokee Mounds in Bartow County. This time, they won't be lost or shuffled to the Smithsonian to vanish from their records. The horses are gone. Only the donkey remains hitched to a small ash tree. The dumb beast has worn a pit around the tree, pacing and snorting, refusing water of any kind. The kings say little and barely excavated today. The woman told me I should halt, as no burial mound has been built like this. They have yet to encounter one with layers of broken, scattered bone. She says this is a warning, a Texas Tut's curse. I say she gives them too much credit. If their sycophants at the university could hear them now, prattling on about this mound as if the devil himself rested at the core. The spoil heap has grown so large I can almost shield myself from them. Not that it would matter. They dig when I rest or sleep. They have moved their tents and eye me with suspicion, whispering to each other. They inquire about my health. Am I okay? Am I sleeping? I ignore them. I move through the layers of bone. I almost hear a voice urging me on. Keep digging. I hit something. A hard clay. I believe it's clay. I broke the mattock head from the handle. I have no tools that will break through, and even resorted to contacting the kings, who only watched from a distance as I labored with this layer of immovable stone. Finally, they join me. We crack the layer, only a quarter-inch thick at the widest portion. On the other side, the dirt is warm. I swear to the heavens, warm. Carrie asks Joseph what it could be. Joseph says they will need to bring in the Smithsonian, the National Geographic Society, anyone to help. I admit, I lost my temper. Once again, maybe the heat. I told them they would not try to exclude this from me. I believed in Reams and risked everything on what his notes said. In the end, I was vindicated. They would not take this from me. They backed away, stared at me like I was mad. It was then I realized I was brandishing the mattock head, gripping it like a weapon. I apologized, what they must have thought. But I swear I just wanted to ensure they didn't cut me out as the woman had promised on the second day. I was finishing another stale biscuit, trying to wash it down with fireside coffee, when Joseph told me his wife would not be helping for a few days. She had fallen ill. In 2 days, I have not seen the kings. Only in the confines of my tent do I hear them, walking around the campsite, coming close to my tent, only to scamper off in the dark. I feel paranoid, but my only defense is a mattock head and a pocket knife. I decline to bring a gun and hope to God the kings did the same. My work continues. The voice, the feeling urges me on. Louder now, as insistent as ever. Dig, dig. I must wear gloves and work slow, as the dirt is now hot. I found out how hot when I tried to grasp a stone arrowhead. As a child, I once placed my hand against a pot of boiling water. Before donning the gloves, I felt the same sensation. My hand feels swollen, and applying water only increases the burning. The donkey, poor dumb beast, now just sits by the ash tree, rubbing its head against it until the bark is as polished as the animal's head is raw. If we had a gun, I think it would be in the best interest to put the animal down. I need to add this. I feel ridiculous, like a child who sees ghosts in the dark. I heard the sound of someone walking to my tent. I opened the flap and stood up, my heart beating at an extraordinary pace, ready to confront Joseph or Carrie King. I saw a man, or the silhouette of a man. Between the moon and the dying fire, there was little to illuminate him. He stood in shadow, shaped like a man. Who is this? Someone upset we've disturbed this place? Someone who thinks we may have something worth stealing? The air grew still. Not quiet. Still, like someone ordered the wind to stop and the animals to cease their nocturnal adventures. Without a sound, he vanished from view. I returned to the tent and fell into a nervous sleep. I woke several times, feeling the urge to leave the tent, to dig. When I woke up, my knife was not by my side. The blade was stuck in the ground just outside the entrance of my tent. I know. The kings were right about the bodies. I will acknowledge that. This is a warning, one that was supposed to be apparent to all languages. Broken bones and sharp sticks and arrowheads and spears, all pointed outward to anyone digging inside, all relaying the same message: don't dig. There aren't giants or mound builders inside. There's a structure, something enclosed in a rough, uneven glass. How? How could they have made this? How is it warm? I caught a glimpse of Joseph rushing to the tent. He looked at me with fear, maybe hate. He looks thin, like his wife. They are weak and pale. Other than the headaches, I have no complaints about my health. I now sleep when they do, wake when they do. I hear the rustle in the tent and whisper. I finally ordered them out. They looked ghastly. My God, their eyes were yellow, like a fever took them and shook them to their core. They coughed black phlegm and were unsteady on their feet. I told them to take the animal and leave. Carrie asked me if I was scared. She asked why there were no signs of settlement anywhere near the mound. Why build a massive structure and then abandon it? I laughed. I said they were mad. They then accused me of poisoning them, of threatening them. They said I was pacing around their tent at night. I was whispering threats. They said I used a knife to cut a slit down the side of their tent. I admit I saw the cut and was just as perplexed, but I have not paced around their tent and threatened them. I have slept, and I have dug. Nothing else. Just sleep. Just dig. Through bone and dirt, I return to the dig. I can barely use my burned hand. Trying to remove the glove led to a gruesome discharge. I will see a doctor, though how I will escape on the broken beast tied to the ash tree is beyond me. Going on foot is impossible, and the Kings haven't responded to my inquiries, even when offering them biscuits or coffee. This afternoon, tiring of them ignoring me, I discarded my genial manners and simply opened the tent. Empty. Joseph and Carrie have left. However, they have left their canteens, their food, and even their tools. I see his silhouettes. From the moment the sun sets, the figure appeared just outside the fire's light. I realize I have only seen him from a distance. He vanishes, fading into the dark but calling to me. Who is he? He makes no attempt to molest me or impede my work. My tools remain in place when the sun rises. A ghost? Am I seeing spirits? They seem as real and of substance as me or the Kings. Failing to dig around the glass, I finally managed to shatter it after a day of labor. No stone behind it or that layer of almost impenetrable clay. Metal. Yes, I swear to you, a silver metal with no sign of oxidation or decay. This must be the source of the heat. I took a pickaxe to the exposed layer. I watched the dents I made vanish. The structure seems to correct itself in response to my tools. What is this place? No sign of them, either of them. No sign of the donkey. But I've seen his silhouette. I caught a glimmer, something shining in the dark. Teeth. He's smiling, but his teeth, he doesn't speak to me. At least, not in a voice. He wants me to dig, but I worry. Should I cover it back up? What will he do if I don't? I continued to dig and I found an artifact embedded within the metal layer. Upon removal, the metal did not correct itself. On the capsule, the device is roughly the size of my hand and rectangular, 4 inches across and 2 inches thick. The edges are curved. There are no seams or places for nails or screws. The device surface is smooth, almost polished. It is lightweight and appears much like a dark, opaque glass. I wandered for water. My canteen was emptied again. Walked nearly a mile before I found the stream. The water was putrid, as I also found the Kings. The only portion deep enough to drink held their bodies. Carrie's body held my pocket knife. I understand it now. I have been a fool. The Indians built this, all of it. They used everything, even the bones of their brethren, to tell us not here. Never dig here. I never thought, I never listened. I went back to camp. I stayed in my tent for hours until the sun began to fade. My watch no longer works, no matter how I wind it. The artifact, it appears to be a capsule, It contains something within it, but I cannot pry it open, and I fear what could happen if I damaged it. I returned to the stream with a shovel. I decided I should give them a proper Christian burial, or as proper as I could perform. But they were gone. My knife was upright, blade stuck in the mud. I no longer dig. Using the king's shovel, I'm returning as much of the spoil to the mound as possible. I return to my tent. It's too dark to return to Marble Springs or Nobility. I hear noises outside. I see fingers trace the outside of my tent. I also hear noises within the capsule. Whatever resides within this small capsule scratches at its prison walls. What is this thing? As I write this, I hear Carrie and Joseph laugh, giggling like drunken sailors, singing "A smile will go a long way." If anyone ever finds this, know they tried to warn us. If I go the way of Reims and this is all that remains, by God, don't dig in Houseman Hill. She didn't want this story, but beggars can't be choosers. At least I'm being paid. Exposure pieces don't really pay the bills, you know? She told herself. She slept in motels, all with the same bland interior paints and the same bland sheets. How much thought goes into creating a space so devoid of personality? Every morning, Jamie had the same pastries and the same coffee. Then the work began. They say grief takes different forms, but so far, Jamie only saw the same unfocused stare, the same sobs. Nearly everyone left their children's rooms as they were. She spoke to them via Skype and email to set up the interviews. Of the 9 families that agreed to be interviewed, nothing seemed very different. The facts certainly never changed. 10 years ago, on April 4th, 726 children disappeared in the United States. Investigators say this happened at about 1 in the morning. They left without noise or screams or any signs of struggle. Although, in one house, an 8-year-old put his brother in the back of a closet, telling him not to come out no matter what. In one girl's room, there was a butcher knife under her pillow. The parents say their goodnight hugs were extra long. Some wanted more stories than normal. None of them cried and none of them said anything. Then 726 of them went missing. Being the 10th anniversary, her website was doing a story. Everyone was doing a story. The site she wrote for primarily focused on music, running nostalgia pieces for older readers, and hyping new bands for everyone else. She wrote the irritating list pieces, of course, top 5 this and 7 best that, anything for clicks or shares. Everyone else is closing up shop, their domains expiring, and their writers furiously sending sample pieces to anyone who might hire. But she hung on. They needed reads. They needed ad revenue. Clicks are clicks after all. She thought about tying this to Norman Pierce, who lost his youngest in the disappearances and currently fronts the stakes. Over the years, no child has been found. None have been cited. No evidence has turned up. The police watched the border, and feds scoured the dark web. They found disgusting things. They solved other cases and found other children. But the 726 remain lost. There were a few things they had in common. In fact, they couldn't find any kind of meaningful connection between any of the kids otherwise. Some came from poor families, while others were members of wealthy, well-connected families, some urban and some rural. They were a variety of races and religions, a variable cross-section of humanity. The investigators could find no messages, no evidence anyone reached out to them online. In fact, the only suspicious correspondence was a handwritten note found in one missing child's room. "Are you ready?" The note was written in block letters. No prints could be lifted, and the paper was just generic printer paper purchased locally. The mother agreed to meet Jamie at 10 in the morning, but no one answered the door. She took notes on the weather, the neighborhood, the cars in the driveway. She knocked again. She swore a curtain moved. Jamie called. She heard a jaunty cell phone ringtone from in the home. Of the 9 families, 4 have stood her up so far. No call answered, and no emails responded to. She checked Facebook pages, Pinterest pages, and even a LinkedIn or 2, but no one has been active since agreeing to talk to her. She returned to her car to call a colleague. "You having trouble talking to anyone?" she asked Lawrence. He worked for a rival site, one that scored an interview with several families as well. "No one taking your calls, Jamie?" He laughed. "So it's not just us then." Did he receive notification from an attorney too? She later found her site did. Apparently, any further attempts to contact the Smiths could be considered harassment. Jamie continued her trip crisscrossing the country. In Oklahoma, Jamie decided to do something a little different. She arrived early, parked down the street, and loitered just outside a wall of tall shrubs separating the Chung house from the neighbors. She wondered if they also had a lawyer on retainer. Mrs. Chung dragged the plastic trash can down to the curb. She wiped her hands on her pants. "Mrs. Chung," Jamie called. She stood up and pushed her black hair behind her ears. "Yes?" "It's Jamie. We were supposed to meet today. Sorry I got here a little early." At the mention of her name, Mrs. Chung started to back up. "Wait, just talk to me, please. I'm getting a lot of cold shoulders lately. I guess I'm not as popular as I thought," she laughed. She made her voice high and hand gestures animated. The silly girl routine usually only disarmed men, Jamie interviewed, but it was worth a shot. Mrs. Chung looked to her left and turned around, speed walking to the house. Jamie sprinted, jumping in front of Mrs. Chung. She ran into Jamie. "Excuse me, I'm so sorry, I just wanted to talk. Are you okay?" Jamie asked, resting a hand on her arm. "I don't want to talk. This is about finding your daughter. You said nothing was more important. Please, leave. You said talking was good, that maybe if Jolie could hear you somehow, she might come home." "She's not coming home." "What makes you say that?" "I don't want to talk to you," she screamed. She gritted her teeth, breathed heavily through her nose. For a moment, before the woman burst into tears, Jamie swore Mrs. Chung might attack her. Jamie held her. Mrs. Chung's resolve deteriorated as she went limp in her arms. She tried to lower her gently to the ground. They sat beside each other on the bumpy gravel walkway. "We can't talk to you or anyone, just go." "You can talk to me. Look, if someone has threatened you, I have connections, we can help you," she laughed. "Connections?" "Yes." Mrs. Chung took a deep breath, trying to bury her sobs. "She came home," she whispered. She leaned in close. "What?" Jamie whispered back. "She came home. She was different. But she's gone now." "Do you know where?" Jamie asked. "If she finds out I talked to you, she may come back. You have to leave, now." After Jamie called about the encounter with Mrs. Chung, her boss was adamant that she not contact the families anymore. Since Jamie liked being able to pay bills, she agreed. Word spread, and no family members would speak at memorials or agree to interviews of any kind. Many moved unannounced. The number of the missing now included immediate family. It seemed they fell off the face of the earth. Jamie couldn't publish her encounter with Mrs. Chung. She even offered it to rival online publications, but no one would touch it. Jamie returned home. She frequented a coffee shop in a chain bookstore. It seemed sacrilege, but a friend always gave her an unofficial discount. Inside, nearly everyone was glued to the TV screen in the corner of the cafe or watching updates on the news. The anniversary of the 726 had been overshadowed by the news out of Marble Springs, TX. A massive explosion at the city's police station and an at-large serial killer with dozens of victims, many of which were fed to a giant alligator, headlined the news. Jamie decided she needed a new story and started an email to her boss. She was close to Marble Springs. she could head there. The new barista walked to Jamie's table. Jamie kept her eyes fixed on her screen, managing her inbox. She told the barista she was fine, but the woman just stood there and never asked about a drink. She was young, and she was smiling. Her dark hair had stripes of pink. She sat down the pot of coffee and cleared her throat. She undid the top buttons of her shirt and pulled her shirt apart just enough to expose massive scarring, a pale, uneven T. "What is that?" Jamie asked. She pushed her chair back. The barista closed her shirt, buttoned it, picked up the pot, and went behind the counter. Jamie followed her. The cashier gave the girl with pink striped hair a confused look. The cashier, Lacey, had been a friend of Jamie's for years. She told Jamie that she'd never seen the girl before. After that, people were eager to show her their scars. Bus drivers, a police officer, waiters and waitresses, all bearing healing wounds from cuts and burns and brands. T-scars like an autopsy or lines across their neck or belly, scars that would take years to heal from, maybe even a decade. If Jamie found herself alone in the hall outside her apartment, someone would be loitering. Someone young, sometimes a man, sometimes a woman. Again, a veritable cross-section of humanity. Sometimes smiling, other times scowling. They never said a word. They just adjusted their collars or pulled up their sleeves just enough to show off the scar. Jamie stopped going into the office. The police officer, he was the one who came to the apartment after she reported the stalkers. He smiled, flipped his sunglasses down over his eyes, and walked away. The bills piled up. Her phone rang until she let the battery die and stopped bothering to plug it in. Her boss tried to contact her, eager to send her out to cover the fallout from the horror show in Marble Springs. But Jamie never responded, breathing a sigh of relief when her phones and devices finally died. She learned how many days she could subsist on dry cereal, crunching on one handful at a time. The blinds remained closed after she opened them once and found muddy handprints covering them. Jamie did not live on the first floor or near the fire escape. The journalist became a recluse, her appearance reflecting her state of mind as the circles formed under her eyes and her skin broke out. She watched her weight drop precariously, and she became accustomed to holding up her pants with one hand as she shuffled around the apartment. Even walking across the room was enough to wind her as exhaustion became her default mode. If she looked out the door, barely peeked through the blinds, someone on the street would turn and smile. Then that someone might adjust a collar, pull up a sleeve, or roll up a pant leg. The 10-year mark since the children left long since passed, and she was facing eviction. Once the landlord locked her out, where would she go? Would they settle for following her and showing off their scars? Would they continue to just smile while Jamie screamed and cried and begged them to just fucking say something? Would they finally speak to the mad woman with greasy hair, the skin on her hands dry and cracked, her body odor repugnant because she refused to be in the bathroom for long periods, as it was just a tiny room with only one exit? The mad woman, she told herself. The mad woman. The eviction notice appeared on her door. It said to be gone by noon the next day. It was 11 at night. The sirens and cars and city sounds seemed to dim when she heard the knock. He was her age, maybe a little older. He had a scar along the side of his jaw. He smiled and took off his ball cap. His skull was a garden of scar tissue where flesh had been shorn away.